Bears fans, there is some major Jim Harbaugh buzz circulating here on a Wednesday morning. And if you want Jim Harbaugh to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears, like this video. We're going to break it all down on today's show. Plus, we just filmed this video. That's why I'm adding this to the front of it. Matt Eberflus getting a second interview with Chicago. It's later on in the video. I break that all down, so stay tuned for that. But like the video if you want Jim Harbaugh in Chicago, and let's get into it. Chicago Bears now. I'm your host, Harrison Graham. Everybody, welcome into the show. And we're going to get into Harbaugh in just a second, but allow me to congratulate Kid Powers once again. We announced on our live show yesterday that you are our winner of the Ultra Game giveaway. Your comment was chosen randomly, and we've got a hoodie to hook you up with, but I haven't heard from you yet. So slide in my DMs, either on Twitter or on Instagram. At HGramNFL is where you can find me on both platforms. Twitter, IG, say, hey, it's Kid Powers, and we will hook you up with a brand new Bears pullover jacket. So, hey, Kid, it's up to you at this point. Hit me up. You're our winner for the Ultra Game giveaway. All right, let's talk about Harbaugh now. The Bears have reportedly made contact with Jim Harbaugh. Hub Arkush hopped on The Rush with David Kaplan of NBC Sports Chicago and said that someone within the Bears organization has spoken with Harbaugh. Now, this was not an official interview. This is more of a, hey, how's it going? By the way, what are you thinking type of things. And basically the biggest takeaway is that Jim Harbaugh is still weighing his options. More on that in a moment. But I do want to get an expanded quote from Arkush on this appearance with Kaplan saying, quote, one source who's usually pretty good told me there was a brief conversation. I think that there was a phone call, and I think that where that phone call ended is Jim's got some decisions to make, and he hasn't made them yet. I'm going to call this a check-in. This wasn't a, hey, Jim, what's going on? Let's do a full, Zoom 2-hour interview like we've been doing with these other candidates, Brian Dable, Doug Peterson, and so on and so forth. This was someone within the Bears, maybe it was Bill Polian, that called Jim Harbaugh and was basically like, hey, what's going on? Like, what are your plans, et cetera? And Harbaugh probably said something to the lines of, honestly, I'm interested in returning to the NFL, but I love it here at Michigan, and I haven't made a decision yet. He's got to decide pretty soon, because I think after divisional weekend, you will see teams start to hire head coaches. So this is going to be the question of the day, the pinned comment on today's video. Will Jim Harbaugh return to the NFL? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Not necessarily the Bears, because other teams are interested, which we'll tell you after this YouTube ad break. But get your votes in, reply with a Y or an N to the pinned comment. So the teams that have been mentioned for Harbaugh, and certainly if, he released some press release of, yes, I want to return to the NFL, maybe some of the other teams with an opening would jump into the mix as well. But the Bears, the Giants, the Raiders have kind of consistently been the three teams that have been mentioned for Harbaugh. Why those three teams? Number one, the Bears connection. Played there, drafted there, was a quarterback there. That makes sense. The Giants, well, we've heard leaks from his camp that he would be interested in coaching there, and there's some overlap there as well. Why the Raiders? He's kind of more of a West Coast guy. He coached there in the early 2000s, and I think Harbaugh in Vegas kind of makes sense if you kind of think about it, because he's so unpredictable, which is what Las Vegas is all about. Here's the deal, though. The ball is in Harbaugh's court, and look, teams will be patient. But they can't wait forever. The Bears can't wait forever, which is why they're going on with their process. They're interviewing GMs. They're interviewing head coaching candidates. And hell, for all I know, Harbaugh is not the Bears' top choice. He probably should be if he's a realistic candidate. But at this point, Jim Harbaugh, I think, has until about Monday to make a decision on whether or not to return to the NFL. Because, again, the divisional round, once that weekend ends and these games end, more coaches are available. What if the Bills lose? Brian Dable, Leslie Frazier, etc. Obviously, I would love to see Harbaugh happen in Chicago because he's a proven winner. And he's a no-nonsense coach. Sure, can he rub people the wrong way at times? Yes, but the resume speaks for itself. Everywhere he goes, he wins. He turns San Diego into a powerhouse at that level. Stanford was one of the worst programs in college football. He made them into a winner. 49ers hadn't made the playoffs in a decade. 3 straight championship games and a Super Bowl appearance. Michigan took a little while to get to top of the Big Ten, but finally got there, made the college football playoff. Overall, he has a tremendous record as a head coach, both in college and in the NFL. I can't speak highly enough about Jim Harbaugh. I think he would be an excellent coach in Chicago. You hire Jim Harbaugh, you'll make the playoffs next year. Book it. I can just about assure you that. I'll tell you what, when the Bears hire a coach, we're going live. Hopefully it's Jim Harbaugh, but even if it's Leslie Frazier, we will be going live, breaking it down. So hit that big red button, youtube.com/Bears Now. We've crossed 40,000 subscribers. The road to 50K is upon us. I can't wait to take this journey with you, and we will continue to have daily videos just for you guys. So go ahead and subscribe today. Okay, let's go from a potential new coach in Chicago to a current coach on the staff, maybe leaving. Sean Desai, who spent his first year as a full-time defensive coordinator last year, well, he's garnering interest. The Seattle Seahawks have requested to interview Desai. They, of course, fired their defensive coordinator, Ken Norton Jr., on Tuesday afternoon. And we've talked about Desai a decent amount on this show, and I like him. I think he showed good promise this past season as a defensive coordinator. Obviously only has 1 year under his belt doing it, but he is a Vic Fangio disciple. He's been on this staff for a long time. He knows defense. He's a young, up-and-coming type of coach. Now, I don't think he's a head coach type of candidate at this point, but teams clearly were impressed with what they saw of him, especially considering the factors he had to go up against. He loses Khalil Mack early in the season. Ryan Pace doesn't give him a legitimate number 2 cornerback. Roquan Smith, really the only quality off-ball linebacker this year. And once again, he had to deal with the Bears' offense being garbage, both from a moving the ball standpoint and too many turnovers on that side. So his defense was consistently put in bad positions. You look at the overall numbers, you're like, this is pretty solid. 6th in total defense in terms of yards allowed at just over 316 yards per game. 3rd in passing defense as well. I think that is also a legitimate point as well. You've got 23rd in rushing. That was a bit of a problem. I think a big issue there is they put too much stock in Eddie Goldman making his return. And then also you got to factor in the fact that they couldn't get takeaways. That was a big problem for Desai's defense this year, but it's his first year on the job. I think overall he did pretty darn well. I think Sean Desai is a worthy candidate. I think he is a guy that will garner interest for sure as a positional coach in the NFL, but I think it's really possible that he could be a defensive coordinator somewhere, even if it is not in Chicago, which obviously that will have to be determined by the next head coach. Grade Sean Desai's first defense as defensive coordinator. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And literally as we're filming this live, my producer, Sam, breaking news, on the coaching side of things. Second interview scheduled, and it's with the head coach, which is really interesting to me because all the momentum was leaning toward a potential GM hire coming first, unless a guy like Jim Harbaugh becomes available. Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts, will get a second interview with the Chicago Bears. And we don't have a bunch of graphics ready, so let me just spew for a minute and speculate on what this could mean. Also has a second interview with the Jaguars. Thank you, producer Sam. That's a good point as well. Interesting on a number of fronts. Number one, could the Bears be hiring Morocco Brown or Ed Dodds? Which, by the way, Morocco Brown did not interview on Tuesday, even though he was scheduled for the GM position. That's interesting, but those two guys are in the Colts organization. Did Eberflus blow McCaskey away with his interview and the rest of this Bears search team that also features Bill Polian? I don't know. There's a lot to consider here. I assume multiple guys will get second interviews, but the fact that the first announced second interview is for a coach candidate and not a GM when you don't have a GM in place, that's interesting. I like Eberflus. He's not a top candidate for me. You'd have to sell me on a guy he would be bringing in as this offensive coordinator to build around Justin Fields, and we'll talk about Fields briefly in just a moment. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring today's show. If you wanted to go bet on championship weekend, this is the place to do it. Go to chatsports.com/Bears. Use our promo code BEARDOWN. down $100, you get a 125% deposit bonus. I cannot wait. This is the best weekend in the NFL because you got the final 8 teams. You got the best teeing off against one another. Tennessee at Cincinnati. Titans 3.5-point favorites. Packers 49ers. I think that line's a little high. I think San Francisco matches up pretty well against Green Bay. Short week may hurt. We'll see on Bosa's status, of course. Tampa Bay, LA. Bucks -3, over under at 48.5. I love the over in that game. And then Chiefs versus Bills. Chiefs 2-point favorites. That line keeps slipping closer to a pick 'em. I think the lower the line, as that line continues to move, I like the Chiefs even more. Go bet on these games and other sports as well. College basketball. Chatsports.com/Bears. Use that promo code BEARDOWN. NBA bets as well. Go get your money with BetUS. Okay, before we sign off, I just want to address these ridiculous Justin Fields trade rumors. I'm not even really going to talk about the origins of them because I don't really care, but it's been circulating over the past 24 hours. Bears could trade Justin Fields, and then there was one report, that's why they're desirable. No, they're desirable because they have Justin Fields. I don't know where this is all coming from. Obviously, Fields didn't, light the world on fire with his rookie season, but he was dealing with Matt Nagy and this garbage offense and a bad offensive line and a checked-out Allen Robinson and so on and so forth, and he still managed to improve throughout the year, both as a passer. We know how good of a runner he is. I think GMs and coaches are interested in the Bears because of Justin Fields, quite frankly. So I think it's a joke. I think it's garbage. It reminds me of during the draft process when people were like, yeah, Fields, he's not a hard worker. And it's like there's no evidence to that whatsoever. In fact, the opposite is true. Trading Fields would be a mistake. I firmly believe that. I think that would be a bad move by this organization. Even if Deshaun Watson is cleared and you could trade Fields and not that much more for Watson, I still just invest in Fields. Come on. This can be the guy. You don't have to panic and go do something completely different. I think that would be an absolute mistake, and I think, quite frankly, these rumors surfacing is an absolute joke. Do you believe in Justin Fields? Type me if you do. Let me know down in the comments. And hey, hell, reports are dropping on the fly while we do videos, and that's why you subscribe, because not only am I going to bring you the latest news and rumors, we have the best production team in the country. Producer Sam getting that note to you guys on the fly when it comes to Matt Eberflus. So that's what we do. That's what we're all about. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. More videos to come here on Chicago Bears Now.